Hello, my name is Mike Prom, Application Engineer for Ketiv Technologies. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a workflow going from Autodesk Sketchbook Designer into Alias, and then finally wrapping that up with a new add-in for Alias called Falcon. Falcon can be found on the Autodesk Labs website, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later on in the video. Now, the first thing that you're looking at here is Autodesk Sketchbook Designer. In Sketchbook Designer, we have a couple interesting things here. First, the ability to bring in pictures, as you can see here, and put them on layers. What this allows me to do is start sketching on top of this, give me a good idea of where my concept's going to be. That way I have an idea that these points that I'm making are very realistic, and they also can be in scale to each other. Another thing that's interesting with Sketchbook Designer is the capability of doing something called vectors. What you're noticing in the video is the ability to come in and change lines. Now I selected the option to put lines in by points. I also have the capability of doing gesture-based lines, which also have points which I can add and remove. Now if any time I can actually create a line and then go back and make modifications to it. So I have other tools inside of here that allow me to grab lines that are already existing. I can move them around, I can go back, and I can add more points. Imagine the capabilities of what you have as far as modifying your designs, quickly coming up with a bunch of different concepts. Once you have a concept, moving the lines a little bit around to see how your design can be. And along with this, I have alternative capabilities as far as coloring. So I could come in, I could start shading from scratch, but I also have some interesting fill capabilities. You can see here this already has different gradients built into my fill, which allows me to do just a nice overall highlights shading to give myself a good concept. Now once I'm done with this, notice I have the capability of exporting DWG curves. So those vector lines I've created, I can actually export out and then reuse that information in other programs. Let's jump into Alias and see how those vector lines can be used. Notice the same drag and drop capability of dropping in that vector line into my 3D view here. Now if it doesn't come in the proper orientation, simply use the other tools inside of Alias to do things such as rotate and scale your model to the proper size. Now you're just thinking, this looks really nice, Mike, but it's just a flat design. How can I reuse this information? Well, very quickly what you're going to notice is I'm going to come in and use some of these lines that I have on here. I'm going to copy them and then just do a simple paste and move. What this allows me to do is start to bring up my profile. Now I could just have two and then put some skins across there, building up my surface. In this case, I'm going to come in and add a third set of curves. And once I have these set of curves, I can go back and I want to modify my middle one and maybe change the scale of it. The idea behind this is that these are not just dumb lines that I'm bringing in to Alias. These are actually intelligent lines that I can grab, as you can see, copy and paste. In this case, I'm actually going to scale this just to give it a little bit of different shape so I don't have just a pure flat surface going across. So again, taking my lines that I brought in from Sketchbook Designer, I can also put things like my hulls or my CVs on here. I can manipulate my separate points along the lines, or I can put a skin across multiple surfaces or my curves and build up my surfaces. Watch as I add my surface by skinning through the multiple curves, using the shift command to go from another curve to add my surface all the way across. I can turn on my shaders and start to evaluate the look of this. Also note again that these points can be tied back, in this case to my curves, so I can move my curves, or I could select the surface and manipulate the surface. The workflow behind this is that my sketches that I made, not only can I turn those into pictures, but I can bring that information over. So big point for designers out there is that my initial concept sketches, I can reuse that in actually making some surfaces for my design. Now in this case, I really just want to build up a couple quick concepts. Here I can pull out my curves. You can see I'm using my normal tool to command, which just really nicely lets me pull out the center of this. And now we're taking a look at our Autodesk Labs site. So Autodesk Labs, there's an add-in for Alias called Falcon. We have some nice videos on here as well, also some literature on how to go through the process. What this is our CFD technology that was purchased from Blue Ridge Merrick's, now being introduced into Alias as an add-in. So what we're looking at this is Falcon allows me to do some nice wind tunnel testing. Along with this, I can really quickly prove out some different concepts as you see here. Now, normally I'd spend more time actually doing the full complete surface, but I'm initially just doing my front design as how that contacts the wind, and maybe do a couple quick modifications to my initial design and see how that moves that around. Now what you'll notice inside of this Falcon add-in is I have the capability of changing my units, so I can change this to miles per hour, put in what speeds, obviously semis, higher end speeds, more turbulence, and with that turbulence that's going to reduce my gas mileage. So I'm just kind of trying to go through some different profile ideas. We also notice that I have different capabilities as far as 2D and 3D evaluations. Inside of this, I can adjust my grids, how many points, my scale. So I have a lot of different options inside of this Falcon tool to enhance my viewing of what my analysis is of this aerodynamic wind flow through a wind tunnel. So you can see that the blunt nose there is adding a little bit of friction. We also can evaluate the coefficient of friction here, so the drag this is going to be creating. If I had the rest of my design, I kind of see the turbulence behind, but again, I'm just trying to evaluate quickly some different concepts. So again, I can jump back into Alias, take my model, maybe scale down the sides, kind of get a little sweep back design. I can tweak and push and pull my CVs. Hopefully you'll see the idea of, I started this off with just some initial curves, some concepts of, what I thought I might be able to build or create with my sketches, and then I brought those sketches into Alias, made surfaces off those sketches, and now I'm going back and I'm manipulating this. So the idea, again, was with that Falcon tool, I can see how that surface area is contacted by my wind tunnel, what kind of turbulence, what kind of velocities I can be brought up there, and that can quickly, give me some initial concept designs before I go through and make all my surfaces or go into my detail of my surfaces. Here I can just grab and I can scale my tools. Again, notice earlier you saw me manipulating the curves. Once I have a skin on there, I can grab that skin and start manipulating CVs on that skin. Adjust the scale a little bit, maybe sweep these back. Again, I'm just really quickly manipulating some of these surfaces I've created based off those initial curves and lines. Now once I have this design, I can put this back into my Falcon add-in and evaluate this. Again, we have our 2D plane. Notice I'm looking at the XZ plane. I can change that to an XY, so I can do different cuts, profiles. Notice as the air flows over it, we can see the turbulence. Also, the wind flow it's creating on there. Again, we have units, so we can change this back into miles per hour. Also, the pressure differences that we have in there as well. And then go into our 3D. Now with this, you can see how my wind is contacting this, how my profile has changed, and I can look at my evaluation of my CD as well. Hopefully what you've gathered from this is there's a very great workflow going from Autodesk Sketchbook Designer into Alias with my surfaces, and then now with our exciting new add-in with Alias Falcon, how I can evaluate very quickly some of my concepts.